Robert Frost once said that freedom lies in being bold. Whether you're looking to make change in your life, start a business, lead others, or reach your own potential, boldness will be needed. Today on the Champion Forum podcast, we discuss the power of boldness and how to get more of it. Welcome back, everyone, to the Champion Forum podcast. I am your host. I'm your biggest fan, Jeff Hancher, and I am on a relentless pursuit to help others lead, inspire, and win in this life. Today on the show, I have a wildly successful entrepreneur, best-selling author, and nationally recognized speaker. He's the co-founder and former CEO of 1-800-Dentist, the most successful dentist referral service in the country. Since 1986, they have generated over $1 billion in revenue. Also, fun fact, he once beat Sir Richard Branson in chess. He was a question on Jeopardy and blew the last question as a contestant on Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, which saw him miss out on $250,000, but who's counting? Fred Joyal, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, those are my hits and misses right there.
Well, I think the hits outweigh the misses, Fred. If we could say so. Well, it's interesting. You can imagine I get various requests of people being interested in being on the show. But when I saw the topic boldness, it really caught my attention. As a parent, as a leader, as an executive coach, as a business consultant, it's a common thing that sets people back from achieving more, as you well know. But before we dive into this subject of boldness, I would like to have our listeners learn a little bit more about your journey. Can you tell us, Fred, a little bit about life before Futuredonics and then how 1-800-Dentist came about? Like, what was life of Fred leading up to that point? And then the light bulb went off, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So it took me 8 years to finish college, and I wandered around doing all sorts of different jobs, worked in a whole bunch of businesses just to make money, just to have money to travel. And I knew I liked to write, but I didn't know how to make money doing it. And then one day I walked into an ad agency in Los Angeles where a friend of mine was working. I was just having lunch with him. And I said, these are my people. Like, this is something I could do. And then this was a mentor moment, because he introduced me to the general manager, and I was saying, I want to work here. And he said, well, I'm not going to give you a job because you don't know how to write advertising. And I said, yeah, but I'm really good with writing skills and speaking, all this stuff. And he said, yeah, there's a night school going on taught by creative directors in Los Angeles. Go to that for 6 months and talk to me again. And they taught me to write advertising, to write communication that works, that sells, that persuades. And I never understood that before. I written tons of term papers and all of that stuff, and some fiction and things like that. And I loved it. I to make radio spots, TV commercials, and to learn how that every day was different. And it was always challenging, and I was always honing my skills, but it was a terrible career arc. Sure. Because, in advertising, you'll start off getting paid nothing. And then I'll be, 5, 10, 15 years in, you're making $300,000. And then all of a sudden they lay you off and you can never get another job. Right. You have to go client side, as they say. And you're lucky to get 80 grand. Mm-hmm. And so I watched this happen. I went, I don't want this to happen to me. And then as it happened, another friend of mine was a stockbroker, and he said, I'm really tired of losing money for people. I gotta, just so I can get wealthy. He said, let's do this business that a friend of ours had offered to us. He said, look, I have the 800-Dentist phone number. I think you guys could turn it into a business. You work in advertising and all of that. And I said, all right, it was that bold move of just saying, why not? instead of the million whys. You ask yourself the million reasons why it will go wrong. You say,
Right.
why not? We're young. We don't want to work for anybody else. So we knew those things. We wanted to create a great place to work because we had worked at some really terrible places, really lousy bosses who were not leaders at all. And it was very informative. You know, you learn so much more by what people do wrong, especially if it's not out of your pocket that you're learning it. You know, I worked with an entrepreneur who was like the laziest entrepreneur ever in one of my careers, and it was like a reverse MBA. It's like, here's all the things you don't do, and here's all the things you better get good at. And we beat the streets. We had to. This was back when there was very little advertising going on for dentistry, and we had to fight the headwinds of dentists saying you're ruining the profession, the ADA trying to put us out of business. But we had to find 20 guys in LA that would go along with this. And we ran ads when we finally had them. It took us 6 months of talking to hundreds and hundreds of dentists, which was, you know, that's, you want to talk about cold calling, try cold calling with a business that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And we started to run the ads. We ran radio ads, and we got 50 phone calls the first day. And it was this moment like, wow, this might actually work. And so we just kept adding media money, adding dentists, and just propelling it. And, you know, running super lean. I mean, we took like $2,000 a month each out of the business for like the first 2 years, just, you know, paid rent and food. And that was pretty much it. And then it tipped when we switched to television. And all of a sudden the calls, I mean, we tripled out. We went from 100 dentists to 300 dentists in a single year.
Wow.
And just went into profit. And then it was off to the races. We went from 200 square feet to 1,000 feet to 20,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet over the course of the next 7 years. And so, and we just created a great place to go to work. And we created value for the dentists and the consumers that couldn't figure out how to find a dentist. And it ran for a long time until, you know, phone numbers became less meaningful and television advertising became very ineffective. That's what we lived off. Those were our two differentiators, was an incredibly memorable phone number and an ability to buy advertising hyper efficiently and distribute the leads over a wide range of dentists across the country.
Yeah. That's, you know, the concept, correct me if I'm wrong, from the research that I did, was basically, I have a toothache and I remember seeing the number 1-800-dentist. I'm going to call it. And then your company would redirect it to the local dentist. They would get a new patient. You would get a cut of the referral. And this thing just scaled like nobody ever thought it would. Correct?
No, it was way more than we thought it would. Our dream was to, you know, to make $100,000 a year. Like, wouldn't it be great to do that?
LA, by the way.
Yeah. That was our dream back in the 80s. It was like, we reached a point where we're doing 10 times that. And my partner and I laugh and say, wouldn't it be great if you could live on $100,000 a year? But we'd have to scale back quite a bit. But you know, and that's the short story. There were twists and turns and
I can't imagine
hanging by your fingernails a couple of times. We went through, you know, 3 recessions, the internet crash, 9/11, you know, the 2008 ARM market crash. All of these things we had to figure out our way, and then bringing in private equity at a certain point because we wanted to buy another company. So there were all of these things that you just find your way through, because it's not easy street. And when you don't pay attention is when you get blindsided.
Well, to grow anything from $0, I mean, it wasn't like you bought a company and grew it. Like, grassroots effort to get to $1 billion. And I think every college student listening right now that is beyond year 4, you've just given them great hope, Fred. They're like, wow, 8 years, I could maybe do it in 7. And, you know, but I got a question on that. Like, typically, you don't hear that. And not that it's wrong, but why 8 years? Was it because you didn't really know what you wanted to do? So you kept getting more education? Because this comes up a lot to me in young people, that they don't know what they want to do. And not to say that you found this business by accident. You saw an opportunity. You were a smart guy. You had some experience under your belt. You saw maybe where this was, but I'm going to assume that it wasn't like, hey, look, I'm going to go get all this schooling and then I'm going to start this $1 billion business. What kind of think about those college years, like what was going on at that time?
So I did 2 years of college in Boston at Boston College. And I realized I was wasting my money, borrowing money, and wasting my parents' money because I wasn't learning what I wanted to know. I was in psychology as a major, and I was like, this stuff doesn't seem relevant at all. Cognitive psychology and all of this stuff. And it's like years later when I started to hear Tony Robbins and people like that, and I would say, okay, this is psychology that actually understands human nature and talks about how you affect it, improve it, challenge it, maximize your understanding of it. And that's, when I talk to dentists all the time about marketing, I say, you ignore human nature at your peril. And when you understand it and you just go with it, then you can succeed. And so I took 4 years off because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And that's when I really started to experience all sorts of different things. And it's just like dating. You learn more about dating the women that are wrong for you, or the man that's wrong for you. So you know who's right for you. Because a lot of times you think, I really want somebody like this. And you spend about 6 months with you and you go,
Nope.
I couldn't have been more wrong about this. They're driving me bananas and I'm driving them crazy. And so I saw all these businesses and how people ran them. And some of them, the product was really good, but they didn't know how to communicate it, or the boss was a real jerk and the culture didn't work. And so my partner and I, we had 3 rules. We had, before people talked about core values, we had defined ours, which is, we want a great place to go to work every day. That was number 1, because we got to go here every day. Number 2 is, everybody wins or we don't do it. So we can't harm the earth. We can't, fleece a customer to get our money. The consumer has to win. Our employees have to win, and we have to win. And then 3rd was be profitable, and it always stayed 3rd. And then what happens to a lot of people is money moves up as the core value, make more money. And they start to treat them, they say, I don't have to pay these employees that much. I can trim some of the benefits down and I'll make even more money. And that, we can venture into this gray area with our customers. I mean, you saw it happen. You and I have lived through accounting firms that were like blue chip, like unassailable, go out of business because they had compromised their integrity completely. Big accounting firms, and financial firms. All of you'd see them say, we Wells Fargo Bank, is an amazing example of just like the integrity. They put the wrong rules out, and people worked around them, and the culture wasn't there where people didn't just speak up and say, hey, we can't do this. Now, we had core values that over the years we had codified them into 8 core values, and one of them was integrity trumps profits.
Yes.
And that became, people would just say, we seem to be, if we do this, we seem to be out of integrity just to make a little more money. Checks. So and the VP meeting would be over, right? It would be like, yep, I guess we're not doing it.
There you go.
And it's great. They become these guidelines, these guardrails that make the business endure, and it creates a culture that people defend, because you can't, at a certain point, you can't defend the culture. Your people have to. I got my proudest moment was on my last week at work. I celebrated 3 25-year employees
Wow.
in the business. In that month, they had it all flipped over to 25 in that month.
Wow.
And they had given me their entire adult lives.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and we never stopped letting the people who were below us, so to speak, know that the reason we were successful is because of them, not our
So
brilliance,
good.
you
So
know?
good.
And
Fred, that's amazing. And yeah, look, we have a lot of entrepreneurs listening today, or aspiring entrepreneurs. And I know, the title of the show is Bold and Boldness. But wow, I mean, I'd be remiss not to ask Fred Joyal about his entrepreneurial endeavors. I mean, to grow a company that way, it's not luck, right? There's intentionality. So I appreciate you sharing, kind of what got you there, and then what kept you going, and how it all developed. And you teach on a lot of things. You have workshops. You're teaching this generation how to adopt a lot of the mindset, the principles, the intangibles, if you will. And I do believe that the intangibles are one of the hardest things to teach. And I often tell people that there are some things in success and leadership that are way better caught than they are taught. And boldness is one of those, I think. Boldness is one of those, yet you teach it very well, Fred, but boldness is one of those. It's like, how do we create a workshop on that? Or if somebody says, hey, boss, or hey, dad, or hey, mentor, I want to be more bold. What's the formula? And I have found for most people that the desire to be more bold, or their lack of boldness is holding them back. And
oh
it's
yeah.
not a desire to go forward. They're doing all the right things. They have the aptitude, they have the know-how, but there's this it factor of boldness that could hold them back. And I've also found for most people that desire to be more bold, that the answer is not stop being shy and timid. But what is the answer, Fred? Because we've been there, and it's like, if I'm bold and you're not, and you're asking me, how do I be more like you? And I say, well, just stop being shy. Like, if somebody's out there that doesn't have boldness, they're sick and tired of hearing that, I would think. So what is the answer?
Well, so the interesting connection is a friend of mine, Tucker Max, who's a wild man author, who's also became a very successful entrepreneur, was bold all his life. And he said, I can't teach it. He said, you can teach it because you've had to figure out how to become bold. He says, I was just that way because my parents ignored me. So I just had to get attention. But I was a very shy person, very underconfident, and I missed all sorts of opportunities. They were promotions, they were fun, adventure, they were relationships, women I wanted to meet, whatever. And they gnawed at me. And I see bold people and I'd say, why are they like this? Like, why don't they experience rejection like I do? Why are they not hesitating? And that's the thing I realized, like, hesitation was killing my opportunities because the window closes on a lot of these things, on most things. And sometimes it snaps shut if you don't act. And so I built my boldness muscle gradually by just putting myself in uncomfortable situations. And I figured out many years later, on retrospect, is that what made me confident was bold action. It was, because a lot of people say, well, I can't do that. I don't feel confident enough to do that. When I'm confident enough, then I can be bold enough to do that. And it's the inverse of that. It's bold action builds your confidence. Step into the comfort zone, not know how it's going to turn out, assume it's probably going to go wrong. Because that's what bold people do. They're constantly bumbling into new stuff because they say, I'll figure out something. And if I don't, if it's a total disaster, I'm just going to mine it for information just so I don't bumble it the next time.
That's it.
But what they find more often than not is that the door swings open. The opportunity gets wider. Something unexpected comes at them. Everybody that I approach to meet, and I can meet anybody. And that I was never that way. But I have met billionaires, famous people, and just random people. I meet people in an elevator. I meet people in the Starbucks line. I'll talk to everybody. That was not me at all.
Hmm.
But what happens is I approach none of them with an agenda.
Yeah.
My only reason to talk to them is to connect as a human being in that moment.
Man, that's
And
good.
amazing things happen from that. Sometimes
true.
you just make that person feel better about themselves. You say,
Mhm.
like, I don't know where you find that suit, but it just looks amazing on you. I mean, the cut of it is perfect. You're styling. And their whole day is elevated. And I'm expecting nothing in return. And
So
when
to reverse engineer that, Fred, because it's amazing to even hear that at one point you weren't bold and that you were timid or shy or whatever. When you look back on that version of yourself, why, again, reverse engineering this, what are the root causes for a lack of boldness? The person that's listening, that's like, I need more. I know I need more, but I don't have it. We're going to talk a lot today about how do you get it, but what are the root causes for a lack of it?
it's almost always some form of socialization. Somebody's told you, don't be a show off, don't draw attention to yourself, or you've been hurt or rejected. And we all have different levels of reaction to rejection or misinterpretations of what something means to us. The most powerful thing you can do is change what something means.
Mm-hmm.
When it bothers you, you say, it's bothering me. Is it the reality of it's bothering me, or is it my interpretation of it that's bothering me? I would say 99% of the time it's your interpretation of it.
No doubt.
And because of that, you start hesitating. You say, oh, I could be embarrassed, I could be humiliated, this isn't going to go right, I'm going to fail. If you don't develop an appetite for failure, then you will create this tiny little cage for yourself that is your comfort zone. And your life will get really dull and your dreams will gradually disintegrate. And there's plenty of people who've done just that.
Yeah. And that's the cost of not pushing through it. And at some point, I loved what you said earlier too, that the best person to teach about boldness is the one that wasn't and became it. Because if you've always been bold your whole life and you're the extrovert and all this other stuff, then you're not really qualified to teach it. It's somebody that wasn't, that became it, that said, I identified it and here's what I did. And you did that so much that it prompted you to write the book Super Bold. What,
Right.
What led to that? Was it like, look, I keep running into this with employees, I keep running into this with proteges, so I'm going to let the world know what I've learned and I'm going to put it in book form? Like, what led to the book?
So that at certain point in my life, because I do tons of public speaking now, and and I ran a business, and people started talking to me and referring to me as, they say, well, you're very charismatic. And I would think, are you talking about me? Because I wasn't prepared to realize how much I had evolved from shy Fred. But what I had done about 10 years ago now is I was speaking to this group of high school students, and it was a part of a weekend mentoring program, which was really wonderful. They were teaching them how to manage their time, their money, their relationships, and have goals for their life, all the stuff they don't learn in high school. Mm-hmm. And it was taught by a friend of mine, and he brought a bunch of his friends in to be mentors, and we all did little presentations, and I did my what I've learned in life. And one of the things I said is, boldness is a superpower. It opens doors. It allows you to chase your dreams fearlessly, and to let rejection bounce off you. And they said in the audience, they said, that sounds great. How?
Mm-hmm. That's the
and I said, wow, I have to examine how I did it. And then I realized there were several factors. In Super Bold, the book, I talk about the pride method, which is the 5 steps to building your boldness muscle by preparing yourself. This pride is an acronym: preparing, relaxing, having certain key insights, controlling the dosage of the experience, and everyday actions, working on it every day. And we can break all of those down, but a lot of times it zeroes in on dosage. It's like you have to control the intensity of the experience for what you can handle. I would have friends bring me to a party and say, just go talk to that girl. And right. I would say, if I could, I would. Like, but I don't know what to say. And I'm frozen, I'm tongue tied. And so I wait and start to, get up the nerve, and somebody else would walk up to her and start dancing with her. Yeah. And the window would shut, and I would go, hesitation. That's my problem. I'm so worried that it's not going to go right that I guarantee that it doesn't go at all.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
And so I just started
to lose is don't play.
Yeah. Yeah. It guarantees the loss. It's the forfeit. You forfeited the match.
Yeah, right.
And that's what a lot of people do. And they do it
True.
almost, they're pre-programmed to forfeit the match because they are worried about other people's judgment. And one of the great insights that I talk about in the book, that when that shift happened to me, it changed almost everything, which is the simple fact that people are not thinking about you anywhere near as much as you think they are. They're thinking about themselves. And the direct corollary to that is you have judgments about people all the time. But you look at them and go, look at that guy's stupid hair. Look at that. Look at the way that woman drives. She's an idiot. Like we have these random judgments about everybody. If you actually met the person, you'd realize you were wrong about 95% of the time.
No doubt.
And I've done it enough where I actually go meet them on purpose and say, yep, I was completely wrong. I had all these judgments. And so the insight there is people are doing the same thing about you and they don't know you.
Right.
Bold people have a tiny list of people whose opinions matter. And everybody else is at a 1 or a 0 on a scale of 1 to 10. It's like, you don't know me, so I'm not going to worry about what you think about me.
Right.
What you think about me is none of my business.
Right.
It's a powerful, powerful shift. And you just do it gradually. You put yourself in situations. When I talk about dosage, I say, look, if you feel really shy, and key word, feel shy. You are not shy. You are not genetically shy. It is your behavior that is shy in situations. We have situational boldness. We are bold in certain areas and underconfident in others. And everybody's a little different. Some people it's a lot of areas of their life. Some people, it's only 1 or 2 areas. Guess what? For most people, that area where they don't have the boldness is where it matters most. Like I have a good really friend of mine.
Fred.
Yeah.
I've seen that too, because I'm thinking of people that I know personally that I've tried to kind of work through this, and they'll say that they're shy, and I'll give them 5 examples of areas they're not at all, that they have like crazy confidence and they're the loudest in the room.
Yeah.
And so you're not innately that way, but there's probably areas based off of how are people going to respond? How are they going to react? But the person that's listening right now that doesn't have that boldness is saying, yeah, I've identified some of this, but like you, it's like, I know I got to go talk to the girl. I just can't get to that. I can't get to that place. And I think what you're saying, especially with the pride, which maybe we dive into that a little bit, that model, because that's like that's some execution type stuff right there. But here's a word that always comes up when I talk to people that bring this up to me. And I'd like your opinion on this. There's this confidence, and then there's boldness.
Yeah.
And confidence and boldness, I think they're in the same family, but you could be very confident in what you know, aptitude, but not bold. Yeah. And I'd like your thoughts on this, because I think the person that's really confident that might lack boldness might not identify that this is what's holding them back. because of their high aptitude in an area.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So confidence is how you feel about yourself. Boldness is what you do. Boldness is action.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily confidence in action. Like I said, sometimes you could say, wow, I don't feel confident enough that I'm not going to impress this woman at all. Or there's Richard Branson over there. I can't just go talk to him. I'm not worthy of that. He's a billionaire. He's a multi-billionaire. But the boldness is to walk over anyway.
Right.
And you can be bold without the confidence. You could just basically say, I'm going in, whatever happens. And actually, I have a whole bunch of exercises in the book, and many of them are aiming for failure, to build your boldness muscle, to say, wow, I got close. I didn't get there. I almost said what I wanted to say. And I've done this too. I've walked up to I said, look, there's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think I'm going to go talk to him. And I walk over, and I've preparation first step. And I'm not just going to be a drooling fan. I'm going to go over and say, I think you did some really marvelous things as governor. I think it was really hard with an all Democratic General Assembly to achieve what you wanted to do, but I appreciated what you were trying to do. I'm prepared to say something besides, I really loved you in Terminator. Right. All right. Can I get an autograph? Can I get a selfie? Instead, I said, I thought about what's important to him, what matters, what was he passionate about?
Yeah.
Along with acting. And he, at that moment, he looked at me and said, thank you, and gave me the cold shoulder. I didn't have to say Schwarzenegger's a jerk. Right. All I had to say was, this guy's been bombarded today, probably by all sorts of other people who want autographs, and he's just worried that I'm another drooling freak. Right. And so I don't have to take it on. But I went in assuming he's probably not going to talk to me because he's really famous and I'm not anybody. Right. So I'm if he shrugs me off, I don't have to dismiss him as cold and aloof, and I don't have to beat myself up and say I'm not interesting. It's just, I went in, it didn't happen, but I was expecting it to probably not go right.
But you wouldn't know unless you tried.
No.
Now you've been an entrepreneur, clearly. I'm sure you've mentored several entrepreneurs. So you've been around business your whole life. Now, look, we have to have some knowledge. We have to have aptitude. You went to advertising school, got it. But would you say, in your experience of watching successful entrepreneurs, this whole boldness factor, if you had to pick one of the two, which again, this is silly, but if you had to pick one of the two, high boldness with not as good aptitude, or crazy aptitude and not real good boldness, where are you going, Fred?
I'm going bold. Because
and I agree. Because I think the bold person, you said this earlier, it's like, I don't have all the answers, but I'm bold enough to go where I haven't been before. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to learn from it. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go again and again and again. And eventually I'll figure it out. Where you might have this person that literally knows how to split atoms and, cure a disease. But because they are crippled with this lack of boldness, they become the best kept secret the world has ever known.
Yeah.
And so we got to help people get over that, which you've made it your life calling. So your thoughts?
Yeah. But how many business owners do you see that they're engineers? They've created a great product, a great piece of software, but they can't raise a nickel.
Right.
And then there's other people who have an idea that they can go raise $50 million on it because they come in and they are passionate about it. This is where, if you want to talk about the importance of boldness in business, it hits all sorts of places. It takes boldness to ask for the order. It takes boldness to fire somebody. It takes boldness to give your team feedback. It takes boldness to turn down what looks like a lucrative deal because it doesn't fit with your values. It takes boldness to say, I am the guy that is going to turn your $10 million into $100 million and sell it passionately. Because I'll tell you one thing that I learned in business is, and I hear this over and over again from from people who invest money because they want to invest money. That's their job, is to invest money. They bet on the jockey, not the horse.
Yeah.
They are betting. They want to know if you can do it. They see 100 great ideas. They want to know if you're the guy who's going to do what it takes to execute it. And that's what boldness is you say, like, I'm going in and I'm never going backwards. I am going to figure this out. I'm going to solve it. I may have to pivot 50 degrees at a time, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. And keep going. And so you're saying that the listener today that's insecure or lacks confidence can still be bold, right?
Yep.
And so with that in mind, and we've kind of talked about this, like boldness isn't always inherent. It can be taught. You're living proof of that. Let's dive in. I'd love to give the listeners some practical things, whether it's the pride method, breaking that down. We're not going to go into a full workshop on the show, of course, but whether it's the pride method or some examples or exercises that people can do to get from where they are to just finding incremental boldness improvement. What are they, Fred?
Yeah, well, just to give you a good example, I did a workshop, a super bold workshop, 2-day workshop to really accelerate people in their growth. And it was everybody from a really, really shy person, like the poster child for shy, to some woman who had really accomplished a lot and just said at the end of it, she said, wow, I didn't realize how much bolder I could be. But what I've done now is I've taken a couple of people and I'm coaching them individually. And there was this very shy young man. And I said, we're going to start where you are. And I said, what you're going to do is you're going to compliment a stranger every day. That's all that matters. And I said, and you're going to tell me every day what happened. I need a text from you. And he just started doing it every day. Now, one of the part of the pride method, everyday action. What you work at every day aggregates. What you think you'll get to disintegrates.
Yeah.
So he's doing it. And I can see him shifting because he's not worried about how he's going to maintain the whole conversation. Or what am I going to say? He's going to look at that person. This is the preparation part, the P. He's going to look at that person and say, what's interesting that I could tell him about? Is that a great haircut? Is that a great suit? Does she have an interesting pair of shoes on or a handbag that I, it doesn't have to be something I even appreciate. What she's got it, he's got it on, it probably pretty proud of it, and so he's building this feedback loop, like, wow, I just made that person feel good about themselves. And they said the unexpectedly nice thing. He said, one woman, I said, wow, that dress just looks amazing on you. It's, that color really, really looks terrific. And he's stumbling to say it, I'm sure, but he's saying compliment. And she said, action. Yeah. And she says to him, oh, thank you so much. You know what? I was feeling so low today that I thought I'm just going to dress in something really bright and colorful. So thank you so much for telling me. Now, how do you think he felt after that? It's like, wow, I took somebody who was feeling down and I let them know they should be feeling up, and they did. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what he's doing now is he's building an appetite for this. So pretty soon, if someday he goes to bed and he hasn't complimented somebody, he's going to be like, oh man, I got to get out of bed. I got to go down to the 7-Eleven. I got to say something to the clerk or somebody. Anybody got to find somebody, because it's just like when you do really good exercise that really strengthens you and builds your energy, you miss it after a couple of days. You can't do it. You got to do it. You feel drawn to it. So the next step for him will be to, all right, now you have to go the next step and do a little exchange. Say, and it's not a big step. It's, hi, my name's Eric. That's it. It's not hard to come up with that.
No.
And what's going to happen is they're going to shake your hand. They may say something or not. And you could say, I just wanted to meet you. You seem like a really nice person. So I gave him like, this is all the preparation you need. You don't have to be witty. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be clever or charming or anything. You just have to be nice.
That's all.
And watch what
everybody's able
happens.
to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
And so,
Stop
Fred,
overcomplicating this.
There may be a listener that's like, well, Fred, that's a long haul from telling an employee that they're terminated and they can't be on the team anymore, or offering discipline to an employee. Like, Fred, you're talking about telling somebody that they have a nice dress, but correct me if I'm wrong. Like, what you're trying to tell people is that you have to build the habit of boldness. You don't just go from being shy and timid to being able to sit down and tell an employee that they're fired and thanks for your time here. Because there are leaders literally that I coach through this that could throw up in a bucket, like calling me, borderline anxiety attacks. This leadership thing, I don't think it's for me. I have to discipline somebody. The VP told me it's either them or me, and I got to go into the lion's den and I got to figure this out. And, at that point, it's like, well, you should have built up to that. But if you are that leader listening, like, or that entrepreneur that's listening, you got to deal with vendors or employees or whatever it might be. Listen to what Fred is saying. Like, there are small things that you can do, everyday action, that will lead to big boldness, but nobody ever got dropped off on top of the mountain. Like, climb that with these processes, right?
Yeah. If you want to be able to bench press 200 pounds, are you going to start with 200 pounds? I don't recommend it. Because it's going to fall on your neck and decapitate you. And so work on it when it doesn't matter, so that when it matters, you can summon it. You can say, all right, I know how to relax myself, because that's one of the other steps is you can physically relax yourself.
Relax.
Yeah. And people do this all the time. They'll say, why don't you just relax? It's like, if I knew how to relax, I would do that, but you can relax yourself. Controlling your breath, checking your physiology, you can transform how you feel and change that anxiety into energy that you can use in the situation. And if you got to terminate somebody, it's the first time you ever terminated somebody, guess what? Bring in your secretary, your assistant, and you say, I'm going to pretend to fire you. Okay. Help me out with this. I need to just practice this. You're not really fired, right? Yeah, and you feel free to get upset, cry, do whatever you want. That's just going to help me. Why wouldn't you rehearse that? Why do you got to leap into the lion's den before, practicing with your sword a little bit?
Right on.
And so it's not the first time you're doing it. You've already gotten the first time out of the way in rehearsal, so that you say, I don't want to say it that way. I don't want to say it. It's like, it's time for you to go. And oh, I don't understand what I'm doing. It's like, well, we've decided that your performance isn't what we need here. And you're going to have to take your stuff and you're going to have to go. And just, and realize, like, if I have to terminate people, most of the time, the less you say, the better, because you don't open yourself up to litigation.
Yeah,
right?
no kidding.
So just
Take
say,
it from the man who knows, right?
Yeah. You just go back to, no, this is going to be your last day. Well, I don't understand. I try to do a good job. That we don't agree, and you're going to have to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing too, that I tell these timid leaders or emerging leaders all the time, Fred, is there is a cost of doing it, which is the fear, the anxiety, the sweaty palms, the upset at the stomach. And how are they going to act? Are they going to throw a chair? Are they going to cry? Are they going to egg my house, toilet paper my lawn? Like, all the things that could happen if I do this. Or going to the girl at the dance. She's going to tell me I'm ugly. She's going to say I'm stupid. She's going to do all these other things. And so we think about that. But the other part that I think we can train our brain to become more bold is, what is the cost of not doing it? Have you thought of that, leader or person listening? Like, what's the cost of not doing it? you're going to keep that toxic person on your team and salvage the rest of your A players. That's what you're giving up. You're going to live a life as a loner and never get married or have a family. That's the cost of not doing it. And, you know, my drill sergeant used to say it all the time. He would say, you're going to pay in sweat or you're going to pay in blood. Like either way, there's going to be pain. So keep doing push-ups. Like you're going to pay a price. Which one do you choose?
Yeah. Do the hard thing when it's easier.
Yes.
And get stronger. You can get stronger. This is so important to realize, is it is just like a muscle. It will build. You'll get momentum to the point where you say, wow, I could probably get on stage. You know, when people come to me and say, I want to start public speaking, but I'm so anxious, I don't think I can do it. And I said, well, that's what Toastmasters is for.
Yeah.
Is like, you start gradually. You start you start with complete support, and you're doing a 5-minute talk,
right?
And you're aiming to fail. Because what you want to do is do everything that you do wrong, so somebody can point it out and say, stop grabbing your nose every time you say a sentence, right? Stop tugging your ear, stop waving your arms around, stop folding your arms, speak in a clear voice, stop saying, right? The greatest thing that can happen, I did a speaker training course this year, and I said, I am here to put you in a situation where you're going to make as many mistakes as possible so that I can tell you what they are.
Sure.
And they were like, no, I want to do it perfectly for you. I said, I know. And I'm going to make that impossible so that I can fix your flaws, because you have them. You're here to get better. The only way you get better is you figure out what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
If you were perfect, you'd already be speaking to 50,000 people.
Yeah, you wouldn't be in the workshop, right?
Right.
Fred, tell us about the I and the D in pride, insight and dosage. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the insight, one of that key insights that I talked about is people aren't thinking about you anywhere near as much as you think you are. They are. But the other thing that bold people know is that 99% of the time, nothing bad happens unless you label it that way. You could, oh, wow, I wanted to meet that guy, and I walked across the room and I introduced myself, and I thought I was looking very attractive, and he brushed me right off. Oh, okay. So that's horrible rejection. That's one definition. Or this guy is totally wrong for you, and it would go badly after 3 months or 6 months or whatever. Or he's just come off a terrible relationship and he doesn't want to meet anybody. He doesn't want to date anybody.
Yeah.
Or you look like his mom and that makes him uncomfortable. Like there's all of these things. But what you do is say, that wasn't a bad thing. I don't have to label that as bad. That was just what happened. And now I'm going to walk over and talk to somebody else. And what happens is you end up, it's not cause for retreat back into the shell. It's cause for try again. Oh, I think I'll talk to that guy. And maybe, you know what? I won't go for the best looking guy in the room. Maybe I'll go for the who's going to be the most interesting guy in the room. Maybe I'll talk to the shyest person in the room, the person I know that's looking at the bookcase or the record collection or something like that. I go talk to them because I'm going to liberate them, because I was them. Right. Yeah. So now I feel this like I'm a missionary. I got to go rescue them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I go and I just start introduce myself, start talking to them, open them up. They're invariably a very interesting person.
It is amazing too. Like if you think of the what if, it usually is followed by a negative, isn't it?
Yeah.
The what if usually is followed by a negative. And what you're telling us, Fred, is if you're going to create a narrative, why not make it positive? Because none of it's valid at all. It's what you're making up in your head. Whatever happened actually did happen, right?
Yeah.
And what about the dosage, Fred? What about that one?
Well, let me just, my favorite story about nothing bad happens unless you decide to treat it that way is a friend of mine. She's a great speaker. got tremendous stage skills at this point. And this is a perfect example of it. She's on stage. She's 5 minutes in, and she's got like 500-600 people in the audience. Breaks her high heel.
Oh,
breaks the heel right off. Now, the women in the audience gasp because this is horrifying, the idea that this would happen to them. So they're embarrassed for her. She looks down, she kicks her shoes off, and she says, well, I guess I got to start spending more than $30 on shoes. And the whole place breaks up laughing because they're so anxious for her that she's given them this relief. So they bust out laughing. She does the rest of the talk in her bare feet. They probably talked about it for the next 2 years. But she decided it wasn't a bad thing. It was an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what happened is after that, she owned them because she was a human being who let something roll off her and said, like, I choose not to be embarrassed. Because embarrassment is a choice.
It is just like shyness and boldness.
Yeah. So and dosage is what I've been talking about. It's like, just start talking to a stranger. Talk to a stranger every day. Say hi, smile at a stranger, whatever it is, pay a compliment, then work your way up. My book has 5 levels of exercise that go from really simple, smiling at people, to some really crazy stuff. I mean, in my workshop, just to give you an idea how crazy my workshop got, there was a challenge that you didn't have to take, but if you were willing to do it, you would realize something interesting. And we were right on this outside shopping mall. And so the challenge was you had to take your pants off and wear an adult diaper and walk an entire city block. And I said, if anybody does it, I'll do it with you. So 6 people jumped up and said, I'll do it. I'll do it. And then one woman said, can I keep my clothes on? And I said to the guys, because it was all guys who were willing to do it. I said, guys, what do you think? We're going to let her do it? And they said, yeah, let her do it. So she had tights on. She pulled the diaper up and we all walked around in our diapers. And people said all sorts of stuff to us. And then the guys got back and people said, what was it like? What was it like? And they said, it just wasn't that big a deal. We were trying to be foolish. So if somebody thought we looked foolish, they were assessing it accurately.
Well, that gets back to your earlier point of people care way more about them than they do you.
Oh, they're embarrassed for you. They're like, a couple of people like covered their eyes. Like, what's the problem? One woman said, you look foolish. And it was like, really? How so? I don't understand. But
so there's an action item for everybody. On the path to boldness, go grab some adult diapers, walk a city block, you'll be good.
Yeah. Because everything else you do won't seem foolish, won't seem embarrassing, like, because you've deliberately embarrassed. And that's the whole thing is you keep moving into your discomfort zone, but you don't do it so it overwhelms you, but you gotta keep moving into the discomfort zone. Mm-hmm. And what happens is it expands. It's telling team members what you expect of them, rather than let it build up till you're angry, like that salesperson that's late 5 times and finally you're ready to blow your top and you go, get in my office. You are always late. First of all, that's not true. They're late sometimes.
That's right.
And you don't care about this workplace. No, so instead, the second time they're late, you call them in and say, that we really need you on time here. That's kind of a priority here for our business because everybody else is here on time. It's disrespectful for them. So how can we help you to be on time? What is it that you don't understand about being on time? Well, it's like I'm always trying to get here on time. I said, aha, you're aiming for 9 o'clock. Aim for 10 of 9.
There you go. And
you'll always be on time. And it's like an epiphany for people who are not punctual by nature. It's like you're going to miss it if you're aiming for that time.
Right.
So now you've addressed the problem, but you haven't overloaded it. And now if they're late, you're saying, what were you aiming for? And then eventually you say, guess what? You don't seem to get the aim for early. So you're going to have to go. And you fired yourself, right? You just, and that's the thing is, the reason a lot of people have trouble firing people is they never manage the expectations of that employee in the meantime. So that by the time they're firing him, they're saying, you understand all the agreements we had, right? And you haven't kept them. So what do you think this conversation's about?
It becomes a natural thing.
Right. Yeah. It's probably my last day. Bingo.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Good knowing you. So I love the pride.
Yeah.
Method.
Right.
I love the pride exercise. I love the mindset that you talk about in regards to helping people become more bold. Are there any other communication pieces of advice? Communication is huge in boldness. Is there anything else that you would say as it relates to communication, whether it's body language or what we say, that people could be intentional with that would help them become more bold?
Yeah, there's, that thing about not having an agenda when you meet somebody is so powerful, because so many people are like, I want to meet her, I want to date her, I want to sell their house, I want to sell them this, I need to get them to subscribe to me, or whatever the heck it is. And we can smell that on people. We feel the need, and we also feel the lack of agenda. I have had conversations that I've just been interested in connecting with the person. I can remember this one so surprised me, because I was talking to this woman. It was at a trade show, and she was working at her booth, and we just got in a sidebar conversation. And we're about 4 minutes in, and she says, my father died when I was 12. Now, I didn't ask her about that. And we were talking about things that were kind of important to us. But she felt so comfortable because I had no agenda that she opened up her greatest wound to me.
Wow.
And I thought, I surprised myself, because I said, wow, this is what can happen when you're just interested in somebody else. Be curious, genuinely curious about somebody else.
Yeah.
And what happens is we have all of these behavioral traps that we do. We're the know-it-all in the conversation, right? It's like we've always got, we can correct their grammar, we can correct their statistics. Has anyone ever been endeared by that in a conversation? No. So what the hell are you doing it for? Right? To feel good about yourself. Guess what? You win, they lose, you lose, right? You think you won. They just thought, yeah, a know-it-all. Guess what? Make them the know-it-all. I do this all the time with stuff. It's like, if I know the answer, I'll get them to say it. It's like, what the heck? I'm thinking that, what's the capital of North Dakota? It's like, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. It's Pierre. I know what it is, but I want them to say it. I want them to let them have some fun with it. Let somebody else be the funniest person in the conversation. If you're genuinely funny, and I'm pretty funny, I don't make it a competition, because now they feel like I can't be that funny. So I'm just nice. Ask questions, ask open-ended questions. This goes back, to How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's all the way back there, but it still works.
Make it about
just,
them.
And instead of, and don't play top this, which is, somebody says, the perfect example is, I love saying, where's the most interesting place you've been this year? It's a great open-ended question.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh yeah, you know what? I was in Rome this year. I had never been. I love the food there. And what people do then, and this is normally, it's a ping pong match, right? They go, well, I was in Rome last year. I go every year. It's amazing. Right. I saw the Rolling Stones at the Coliseum the last time I was there. It's like the person goes like, I just ate a lot of gelato. It's like they got, I can't top what you said. So instead, what do? You say, really? You love the food? What's the did you eat octopus? Did you, make it about them. Yeah. How about, did you get addicted to espresso? Because when I started drinking espresso there, that became a lifelong problem for me.
Yeah.
And
You know what's
and just
amazing about like you saying that too, about making it about other people, for the person listening, that's like, wow, this isn't rocket science. I thought by the title of the show, I was going to come on and get this formula, which obviously you have the pride formula. I think it's more about doing what you already know and being intentional, right? And
yeah.
getting out of that, like embracing the discomfort. And I love what you're doing, Fred. I love there is so many gaps in this, in leadership, in life, and there's not a lot out there about it. So I love what you're doing. We're going to make sure people know how to connect with you, but I got a great closing question.
All right.
Did you beat Sir Richard Branson at chess?
The first time I played him, I did.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah,
There
and he
you
called me a
go.
really bad name and immediately set the board up again to play, and he beat me every time after that. So,
And you were
but he
so
liked it.
afraid
He
and
liked
ashamed and
the thing. I played such an unorthodox game the first time. He couldn't figure out what the hell I was doing, and what I was doing was remembering how to play chess. Now, this is a boldness story because I had ruptured my Achilles tendon. I was on Necker Island, which you can see. This is my shirt, and I'm sitting on the couch, and he comes over to me and he says, "Oh, this is such a bother that this happened to you. Do you happen to play chess?" Now, the correct answer is I haven't played chess in 40 years, right? But the bold answer is yeah, because why would I do that? He's going to beat me. I'm going to look stupid. I don't remember how to play chess. It's going to be embarrassing. I played none of those tapes. I said, yes, yes, I play chess. And I sat down and we played. And because of it, and because of the way I played, because I beat him, and also the conversation we started to have, because we found we were very politically active and aligned on a bunch of stuff. And I mean, he's the guy I admire most in the world. Let me put it that way. So I could have clammed up, but because then the rest of the week he would say, sit across from me from dinner. It would be 30 people. He'd say, sit across from me. And people would go, you're hogging Branson. I'm saying, like, he asked me to sit across from him. What am I supposed to do? God, no. These people all want to interrogate you, because that's what people do wrong. They want to see if he'll invest in their business or give them business advice. He's got all the money he needs. He doesn't need to give advice or invest in anything. He wants to have fun. He wants to talk about stuff that matters to him,
or play chess.
So yeah. And play chess. He wants to play.
Yeah, right. That's another great example. And, in closing, I just want to challenge the listener that might be there, or maybe you're listening, you got this all figured out. Send this episode to somebody. And I just want to challenge you to really not allow yourself to go through this entire life and not at least get better at this. Because I will tell you, the aptitude thing, like, congratulations, you got the degree, you read the books. But if you allow yourself to let this boldness thing hold you back, you will never, ever reach your fullest potential. So, Fred, I love that you joined. Appreciate you investing time. How can people connect with you, learn more about how you are serving the community? How can we find you?
So the book is available on Amazon. It is super bold, from underconfident to charismatic in 90 days. Certainly a bold promise, but you will be on a trajectory to build your boldness muscle the rest of your life. It's in Kindle, Audible. It's me reading it, and it's in hardcover. Go to my website. You can watch a couple of boldness lectures. You can find out how to hire me for keynotes, find out maybe when the next workshop is coming to your area, and just chase your dreams, man. You're the only person you need permission from to have the life you want is you.
So good. Well, listen, you got a story. You have an amazing story. You built an amazing business. You're now dedicating your life to serving others and giving them the quote unquote tricks to get there. So thanks for that. We appreciate you. Everyone, that's a wrap for this week. Make sure you go get the show notes of this episode and every episode by going to jeffhancher.com/show notes. There you're going to find links to Fred's books, as well as his website, his workshops. And until next week, be bold and never forget that you all have been set up to be champions in this life.